All right,
Say
is my
something.
mic going through?
Yeah, your mic is going through. All right, ladies and
We are
gentlemen,
back.
we're back. I'm sorry about that. Basically, somebody hit the wrong power switch, and it
Not
just,
us.
yeah, not
Not
us.
us.
And
His landlady.
yep, and everything went to shit. But we're back up. I'm gonna get reorganized over here right now, but we're back up, ladies and gentlemen. So, unfortunately, because of
Well,
the
let's
scare
let's
there.
let's wrap up on the impeachment stuff then, while you're getting things set back up on your end. So,
Okay.
bottom line, circular reporting. And one of the best moments. I don't know if you heard about this
What's
since
up?
you're down there in Mexico.
Yep.
Adam Schiff, head of the Intelligence Committee, the other day read a completely fictional transcript of the call between President Trump and President
Yes, I
Zelensky.
did hear that.
Yes, completely fictional, without mentioning that it was in fact fictional. So now I don't know whether he was genuinely trying to fool anybody or whether he was just being a sarcastic asshole. But the fact that he did it at all is just horrific to me. Why would you read clearly something that was fiction or sarcasm or parody or whatever the hell it was supposed to be into the record like that?
Um, I don't know. Easy answer would be fuck
The
Democrats.
Yeah, no, the easy answer is they're trying to make Trump look like Hitler or Stalin more and more every day.
Yeah,
Everything
that.
they can do to say, look at all this corruption, look at all this abuse of power, we have to get him out of here. And it fits along with the narrative of white supremacy is everywhere, and Trump is literally murdering immigrants and things like that. They're doing everything they can to paint him as Hitler.
Uh-huh, exactly. Exactly. I mean, that's basically that is literally what it comes down to now, isn't it?
Outright. So
Um,
when was the last time you heard any anti-Semitism out of the GOP? I mean, I haven't,
I haven't heard
but I
any.
hear it from the DNC all the fucking time.
Yep. Same here. Same here.
Anyway,
Yeah, it's just it's getting old, ladies and gentlemen. It's getting old. Okay, that's what's happening. It's getting very very old. Um, the
how
way
about
that this is going. Hmm. What's that?
how about this? I read a long article today about Eamon Bundy and the rest of them. The guys that had the whole armed standoff with the federal government over grazing rights in Nevada, and then later led the armed takeover of the wildlife
Yeah.
refuge
Uh
in
huh.
Oregon.
Yep.
Okay, people like that gravitate towards these conspiracy theories about the government and everything because of these kinds of abuses of power. I honestly believe that these sovereign citizens and all these other assholes that are out there, and they are assholes, by the way, the Oath Keepers and the rest of them, they're, oh my God, don't even get me started. And I'm going to freely admit now, before somebody digs it up, I did join the Oath Keepers for 1 year. I was a 1 year member, and I actually quit months before that because people were posting shit on the internal forums about 9/11 conspiracy theories and whatnot. And what set me over the edge one day was somebody said something about a report that Jews were seen rappelling down the side of the tower before the explosions or some bullshit. And I'm like, okay, if 9/11 was really a massive Jewish conspiracy, why would the Jews even go into work in the first place, you assholes?
Exactly. Exactly.
So that kind of shit. And I was like, okay, if this is the element that rolls with the Oath Keepers, I don't want to be associated with them. So I bailed on those guys. Anyway,
Well, yeah. I mean, it would.
those kinds of assholes. The reason why they get attracted into these little militias and everything else and start threatening government and everything is because of these kinds of abuses of power. And if
Yeah.
government would just quit acting like an asshole, citizens wouldn't feel a need to rise up.
This is 100% true. And the thing is, this goes back to what we've talked about previously about people getting pushed into corners. So what happens, you get people that are generally center and like center left or center right, and, they're not leaning on either side, too much. And what generally happens is you start getting stuff that what's happening with Donald Trump, things like that. And what will happen is these people will get pushed into one direction or the other. They'll get pushed either far left or far right. And it is turning into a situation nationwide, okay, within the United States and probably other countries as well, but we're talking the US here, where there is no safe center. Like, you can't be a center right leaning or center left leaning individual. You have to either be all in left or all in right. And this is happening on both sides. People on the right are starting to shun people that, are center left and still open for a discussion, which is pushing people farther left. The left isn't interested in people that are center right leaning because, well, they're Nazis
even happening,
equally.
Yeah, it's even happening left and right, though. I mean, look at what's happening on the left. They're eating themselves. If you're not a full-on socialist, you're just not with us, and you're for Trump.
Exactly.
I mean, that's where it's going. And we had our little moment with the Tea Party a couple of years ago, and they dragged us pretty far to the right as far as the GOP is concerned.
Mm-hmm. No, exactly. I mean, that's what it's coming down to. That's, what the issue is. Everybody's getting pushed side to side. And that's, ladies and gentlemen, again, I keep reiterating this, but that's why the roaming self exists. It's hence the title, the roaming self. We are constantly growing. We're constantly learning, okay, about what is going on around us and what direction we want to lean on this. And at the end of the day, it comes down to, do you want to be the person that has the conversation, and is actually truly tolerant, or do you want to be the person that is saying, punch a Nazi?
Right.
I had a discussion, if that's what you want to call it, on Twitter the other day with somebody that was left-leaning. It was a decent back and forth. Neither of us really kind of went overboard, started calling names or anything like that. I mean, there's a few things on his side. I called him a dumbass, but I would say that in jest. And it seemed to be going well. And essentially, the last comment, let me see if I can pull this up here for you, ladies and gentlemen, so we can go through this. So there's facts and not rumors going on here. So basically, the extent of the conversation, the interesting part, I should say, was, if I could still pull it up, because he did block me. So I don't know if I'll still be able to pull up his messages.
And I saw your tweet about that, and that's interesting. Yeah, every time I've gotten into it with somebody who disagrees with me on Twitter, as soon as I present facts and shut down their arguments, I get blocked every single time, with or without name calling. It doesn't even matter.
Yeah,
facts get you shut down.
Yeah, I can no longer find the person's tweets.
Right, that's why, because you got blocked.
Yeah, so I can't say what he said. I'm not gonna paraphrase. Okay, so basically it came down to, I said one thing that I said in a tweet a while back, which was the sad thing about the left is that you talk about, racism, but the ones that are truly racist are you. You talk about, being against violence, but you're the ones that say it's okay to go punch a Nazi.
Right.
You talk about tolerance, but you are the most intolerant people there is. And I put the punch a Nazi thing in quotations. And the next comment was so predictable, it was boring, ladies and gentlemen. And I actually said this directly to him or her, whoever it was, that, basically they came back, well, the really sad thing is that you would be against myself or anyone punching a Nazi. And I said, how predictable that you would grab and focus in on the one thing that had to deal with a Nazi that I put specifically in quotations for a reason, that you would hone in on that and make your next comment about that is so predictable, fucking boring.
I want to state for the record, I would not punch a Nazi, a Jew, a black nationalist.
Thank you.
A gay man, anybody, unless they were trying to harm me or my family or somebody else who was clearly innocent. That's it. I'm not going to punch somebody for what comes out of their mouth.
Exactly, and that was my next comment after that. As I said, I'm against
You're
violence.
You're an immature fucking asshole if you punch people over what comes out of their mouth, period.
Exactly, thank you. And that's exactly what I said, is I said that I'm against violence against anyone. I hate Nazis, but freedom of speech is a double-edged sword.
Right.
Is what I said. It has
to be, otherwise there is no freedom. And
exactly.
I wish everybody would understand that. It really is that simple. You can't have the good without the bad. You just cannot. There will never be a utopian society like they envision.
And it was after that comment that I got blocked. It was after that comment that I got blocked. So it's one of those things, guys. It's like, it's so sad that you can't have a conversation. I'm not going to say you guys. I'm going to talk directly to you. I'm not going to talk in the third person. The left. People on the left. Why can't you have a conversation? Why is it any time we bring up any type of numbers, any type of facts, you go into complete meltdown mode? You start screaming and spewing from the mouth like a rabid dog. Why? It's been going on too long. Aren't you tired of not being able to have a conversation with people? Aren't you tired of not being able to, freely express an idea and still have friends of different thoughts?
Aren't you tired of being angry all the time?
That too. That's got to be exhausting. Like, isn't that like, doesn't that get boring after a while? That you're angry for shit that has nothing to do with you, by the way. That you're a victim of somebody else's victimhood. Guys, I mean, come on. Allow me to repeat that. I'm going to reiterate that point. I'm going to repeat that exactly verbatim. Why are you a victim of someone else's victimhood? How does that logically work out? How can you be a victim of racism, right? Or a racist past, a slavery, when you're not black? How can you be a victim of immigration laws?
Talking to you, Rachel Dolezal, you fake white bitch who pretended to be black.
Exactly. How is it that you can be a victim of immigration laws when you're born American? Stop being a victim for someone else.
I would really like to know what that is about. Again, we talked about this previously. There was a great South Park episode where they all got genetic tests to find out what percentage non-white they were, what percentage black, what percentage American Indian, whatever. And the whole tagline was, I'm 12% victim. Well, I'm 37% victim. And honestly, that's what our society has become. Everybody has to be a victim to feel special. So no, I want to go back to what we've always talked about on the show, conservatism, constitutionalism, whatever you want to call it. What you and I believe in is less government interference and being able to say whatever the hell we want to say. And again, if you don't like it, you're free to not fucking listen. You're free to sell your house and move away from me if I'm the asshole neighbor or whatever. That's the great thing about our society.
But the problem is like, so the thing is, and that is the wonderful thing about our society. The wonderful thing about our society is the ability to make choices, the ability to be where we want to be and not be where we don't want to be, to listen to what we want to listen to and not listen to what we don't want to listen to. That's the beautiful thing about our society. However, you are destroying our society by trying to force your narrative down our throats. And this is where we come from. This is why we exist. You made us. You created this. You don't like what we say. You don't like what we think. So you force your narrative and try to shut us down. And we will not go quietly. Now, I don't want to start...
go at all. There won't be any going.
Exactly. I don't want to start a whole Independence Day movie speech. We will not go quietly into the night.
Yeah.
Which was a good speech, by the way. As far as movie speeches are concerned, that was a good speech. I was moved by it. I would have gone to fight aliens. And you can't, it doesn't work that way. Just because you don't like something, and I'll repeat this, you do not have a right to not be offended. Freedom of speech inherently encompasses being offended at some point. You cannot have freedom of speech without being offended. If you don't like my ideas, don't talk to me. Don't be my friend. Don't follow me. Just completely ignore. I don't exist to you.
We've talked about that, about being offended, not being an ability to control your emotional reaction. So you can be offended by something, and that's okay. But when you're like, oh, I'm offended, and you can't say that because it's offensive, that's what we're talking about.
Exactly. That's why we exist. Right. You made this. Right. Every single conservative podcast, every single conservative voice united against what you're trying to sell, which is a socialist, communist government ideal.
Again, let's go back. I got a great example.
Okay, go for it.
Who has flown lately? Okay? Ever since 9/11, now you have to get screened at the airline. I know damn well the FBI's got access to passenger records now, and they routinely check all that shit, who's flying where. Um, but regardless of whether you believe it or not, okay, so you buy your ticket, you go through the security line, you have to take your shoes off, get your bag scanned, get patted down in some cases when you get selected for secondary screening, all that other horse shit, just to get on a plane and exercise your constitutionally protected right to fly. And if you don't agree with these rules, you don't get to fly, period. Now, whether or not you agree with the mission of the TSA, let's talk about the TSA for a second. It has cost us billions of dollars, billions, and they have
Yep.
never apprehended a single terrorist. Never. Okay? Somebody prove me wrong, please. But I have never once seen a single report of the TSA apprehending a terrorist or stopping a terrorist act. Now, maybe have they deterred the terrorists from attacking certain places? Possibly, but I guarantee you sooner or later they're going to figure out how to take another airliner out of the sky, and the TSA ain't going to stop shit. Because the TSA is the worst of the worst when it comes to government workers. Underpaid, overworked, don't give a fuck, most of them. They're there for the retirement and the benefits and everything else, the good pay. You know, it's a good job for them wherever they live in most cases. Government jobs usually are. And that's it.
Yep.
They're not worried about national security, people. The TSA agents are not like your local cop or your local National Guardsman. They're not there to defend the fucking country. I guarantee it. Now, I'm not saying they're not good people. I'm not saying that at all. But the vast majority of them are just there to get you through the fucking line and on the plane. Follow the rules. Shut up.
Yep.
So I just want you to imagine that that's what our entire country is like now. You want to drive out of the city and go to another state, for example. Nope, you've got to have a passport, stamp this, and permission, and you've got to have your car searched and questioned, and they got to check your social media history and everything else. That's legitimately what people are asking for here, because that is what it was like under the old Soviet Union.
Yeah.
Other than the social media part, which didn't exist back then.
But if you just look at China, you know.
Right. No, China's like that now. Absolutely. China's all over your social media. They monitor your movements. You have the social credit system we're talking about now. We've talked about the surveillance state on the Muslims up there.
And
It is
God forbid you have like any type of like Chinese actual product, like a Huawei phone or anything like that. You know, they're
right.
probably listening on your shit. And that's not a conspiracy theory. Like even the Canadians are afraid of that shit.
Yeah. Yeah, no shit. And I guarantee you that their telecom equipment, the routers and servers and everything else, again, I used to be a network engineer. They can bury code in those things. They can put chips in those things. Things that are not easily detectable unless you're really looking at stuff. Usually the way things work, you pull something out of the box, you plug it in, you configure it, you attach it to your network. It's not like you pull it out of the box and go over it with a fine-tooth comb unless you work in a really super high secure industry like intelligence or something.
Exactly.
So it wouldn't be too hard for the Chinese to ship, say, compromised routers and servers and things like that to the U.S., to their domestic customers, and thereby gather things like, I don't know, trade secrets that might give them a leg up. They're not necessarily doing this.
And if you think that the Chinese wouldn't do that because you think that it would hurt their industry,
doing it. It has been substantiated in the press numerous times.
So there's a lot of people out there that don't look into the facts of it and say, well, Trump's an asshole for what he did to Yahweh, and it's like you haven't seen the facts behind the decision that was made. So a president, generally speaking, doesn't make an offhand decision like that without actually having something to support it, to say, this is why I'm doing this.
Well, that's exactly it. Supposedly Trump makes all his decisions by the seat of the pants.
Mm-hmm. And this was a decision that, if you do the research, has supporting facts behind it as to why Yahweh can no longer work with Google and why it can no longer work with any U.S. company and import any products into the United States.
So in China, for those of you who don't understand, even though they have a semi-capitalist system, the vast, vast, vast majority of businesses are at least in part owned by the state or have a state overseer assigned to them. So absolutely, these businesses are doing the bidding of the Chinese Communist Party.
Hmm. And this is why, we are trying to, we would like to see, manufacturing come back into the United States and be as strong as it used to. Yeah, of course, there's going to be a time period where everybody's going to like, God damn, everything's so expensive. But the economy will adjust. It always has, And there's other options for foreign manufacturing that aren't, China, that will increase the, prices by a small percentage, but still be more secure. The point is that China needs to learn that it can't be doing what it wants, how it wants, when it wants to, without consequence or repercussion.
At the very, very least, I think certain things need to not be bought, or, sourced in China. Things like cell phones, servers, routers, things that can be used for sabotage and surveillance and things like that. Now smart TVs. There was an article, got a couple of years ago, I read about smart TVs being used to spy on people, for Christ's sake.
But there's an animated series that came out on Netflix not too long ago that for some reason I can't find anymore, and this is probably why I can't find it, what I'm about to tell you guys. So each episode was a different story by a different animator. And there was one in particular.
You're talking about Love, Death, Robots?
Yeah, I do believe so.
That's still up.
It's still up?
Yeah, you just got to search for it. It's in there. I was watching an episode the other night.
So if I'm not mistaken, there's an episode in there specifically where the United States purchased all of its military from China or some foreign force. I don't know if it's specifically China. And what happened is that they got ballsy, saying that they were going to destroy us or what have you, and they implemented a back door into every single piece of military technology that they sold us. Cell phones, tablets, servers, TVs, everything. Cameras. They used the cameras for surveillance. They used the cell phones for audio surveillance, and they completely deactivated every piece of military technology that we had leaving the United States completely defenseless and taken over.
Yeah, so is China capable of that? Absolutely not. But China is doing some futuristic shit. The social
but that's an exaggeration for perspective.
Right. No, but that's what I'm saying. They're doing some futuristic shit, though. This social credit rating system that we've talked about before is a direct mirror of a Black Mirror episode, also on Netflix, where once you get below a certain point, you can't live anywhere desirable. You can't fly, you can't travel, you can't get the good jobs, all that kind of stuff. And that is the exact same thing that's happening in China right now in some of these cities where they're implementing this shit.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just a matter of time until it's nationwide, and they're doing it. It's a way to brainwash their citizenry.
And I think this is a good segue into the China discussion that I want to get into. So we've been briefly kind of combing over like China and Hong Kong for the last couple of weeks now, and it's something I've really kind of wanted to get into. And one of the things is the reason why I think that this is a good segue is because I personally feel that Hong Kong is, I think, the last bastion of hope for a free China.
I agree. Although I do believe that some people in like Beijing and some of those other bigger cities are starting to get the feel of it.
Well, I mean, it'd be good that they're getting the feel for it, but it'd be nice if they started standing up and saying something.
Oh, well, they're you got to understand the Chinese military is enormous, and they have no compunctions about using force on their citizens. None. Whereas ours directly does. People talk about how horrible Trump is, but I guarantee you, if Trump ordered the National Guard to move into, say, Texas and shoot whoever, or California or New York City or any place else, it doesn't matter, anywhere in the nation, they would not do it. Our military is not going to fire on our citizens.
I mean, you might find a few guys who would just be following orders, but I can't. The vast majority would be like, no, we're not doing that.
And this is why our military is set up the way it is, with professional officers and professional NCOs. Okay? That's one of the reasons why it's set up that way. So they back each other up. There's accountability in the chain of command, is to make sure everything's lawful and done by the book and is morally correct and all those good things.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't imagine something like that happening unless it was like some type of national emergency and there was a specific target that they were going after, which was an imminent threat on civilians.
Well, that's an entirely different matter. But I mean, the idea that Trump would ever say send citizens into New York City to massacre people because they don't agree with his policies, for example.
Yeah,
But
that would
that is
never happen.
something that absolutely the
Is
Chinese would.
happening in China. That it's happening. It's not that it
Right.
would happen. It is happening.
Okay. So let's put some perspective in this. Again, we talked about this briefly, but so where is it? Oh, and I lost it. Anyway, so what happened was, again, quite a while back, um, Britain had a 99-year lease on the city of Hong Kong, basically. So it was a free and open territory. They had true democracy, which we do not have here in the United States. Again, we are a representative republic. We've never been a democracy, and I hope we
Exactly.
never will be. But they did have true democracy, so they at least had some freedom as opposed to the communist state. And when that lease was up, UK had to honor that. They were not willing to go to war with China, quite obviously. That would have been horrible, going to war with nuclear power over a city. So they honored the lease and they left. Now, China, out of respect to the long game that they have been playing, and that's all it is, they have been soft on Hong Kong for a long time,
Hmm.
and they've been gradually tightening the screws slowly, but slowly, but slowly. They're turning those screws and getting more and more control over the city. And over the last few years, they have been disappearing high profile activists and authors and people who have been speaking out against the Communist Party. And they've been taking them back to mainland China and throwing them in prison. And even the Communist Party themselves has acknowledged this in some cases. Um,
Right.
so, anyway, that's what's been happening. Now, what led to the protests? They passed a law in Hong Kong that would legalize that extradition. So this was just the next step in their long game, right? Well,
That they no
people,
longer had to actually trick somebody to leave or kidnap them into the
right
mainland.
now, they could just flat out legalize it. The police could show up and arrest you, and they could just deport you to mainland, and that was that. So people flipped their shit and started protesting. Now, I honestly believe if they had just yanked that law right then and there, this shit would have died down, but they didn't do that. They doubled down, declared these riots, and started attacking the protesters and everything else. So then they started adding to the list of demands, and they basically want to be free again. And I don't think that's going to happen. So I don't know what's going to happen. I
Well,
don't.
I would
Again,
say so. This is going to be kind of like an idealistic kind of outlook, but I do fully believe that, you know, if the people, regardless of the consequences be damned, do not back down, there will come a turning point
oh yeah.
where it's going to go one way or the other.
Oh no, they're going to roll in tanks and massacre people again to gain order. It's going to be a Tiananmen Square 2.0.
And that's where I think so. Again, this is not politically speaking, ladies and gentlemen. I understand that politically speaking, this is it's not possible, but morally speaking, I think that would be where, as much as you people on the left and a lot of people hate hearing this, I feel that the United States needs to be Superman in this situation and basically dive in and say,
No, no,
that's it.
no. You're talking about going to war with a nuclear power. I think the better option, honestly, and I hate to say this, I really, really, really hate to say this, we get Russia and the rest of the UN on our side. Now, I don't think that's feasible. I don't think Russia would ever agree to back us against China in this matter. So I don't know that there is a solution. I honestly think Hong Kong is just fucked. And just so you know, um, before things really, really tightened up, people were streaming across the border from mainland China into Hong Kong to get away. And now people are trying to stream out of Hong Kong to places like Taiwan and whatnot, where they think they're going to be free. But again, we talked about that last week too, I think, or the week before, where Taiwan is being cut off diplomatically by nation after nation after nation. And as soon as they have no friends, there's not going to be anybody to stop them.
Why are they getting
United,
cut off?
because China is pressuring all these other nations that used to be allies of Taiwan and saying, hey, We'll give you $1 billion in aid. All you got to do is stop recognizing Taiwan as a legitimate country. It's a rogue province now. You get it? So they're doing that kind of thing, and they're doing it to these tiny nations that desperately, desperately need the money, and they're offering them military aid and everything else. So what do they have to gain by standing by Taiwan other than moral authority?
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess that makes sense. I mean, it's just, I guess morally speaking, I just see the images of the people, calling out to Trump specifically.
Oh, yeah. No, it's
waving American flags.
Oh, yeah, I've seen many pictures of that. They've also held up banners asking for the Second Amendment. We wish we had the Second Amendment. Mm-hmm. I'd ship my AR over there tomorrow if I thought one of them would use it.
Yeah, I mean, that probably won't. Somebody probably would, but it probably never get there.
No, of course it wouldn't. No, and by the way, shipping weapons out of the country is extremely illegal, and you would go to prison for that.
Yeah, I was just about to say that. I was just about to say that.
Shit. The U.S. government frowns on that shit big time.
Frowns on it? Yeah, well, it's illegal. It's a little bit more than frowning.
Yeah.
But I do think the thing is like, I saw those images, specifically calling out to Donald Trump.
Yeah. Now
it showed me something.
Okay, so let's say Trump steps up. Mm-hmm. Trump steps up. He bullies China into leaving Hong Kong alone. What's going to happen after he leaves office in 13 months or whatever it is here? What we got? Not quite 13, 14, 15. Anyway, when he leaves office, or if he gets another 4-year term, let's say he keeps China in check for 4 more years. So, what's going to happen then? Is the next president going to have the balls to stand up to China the way Trump has? I seriously fucking doubt it.
Well, it might give Hong Kong an opportunity to develop a way of defending itself.
I don't know how, because it belongs to China now. It legitimately 100% belongs to China. China has let them have this freedom because, again, they are playing this long game. They are quietly rounding up, or they were, now it's become loud, but they were quietly rounding up dissidents and people like that, and they were working to get the people who lived in Hong Kong to conform to the social norms of China. Mm-hmm. And, things were going along so, and then they pulled this shit with this extradition law.
Isn't China part of the UN?
Yeah, they're permanent Security Council members. But guess who votes with them every single fucking time? Russia.
Mm-hmm. Because I was going to say, doesn't the UN doesn't like, correct me if I'm wrong here, like I'm rusty on this, and this might be just kind of like, false knowledge that I have here, but doesn't, like, to be a member of the UN, isn't there like a list of requirements of how you're supposed to treat your people?
I think there's some basic stuff. Yeah, I think that's the Geneva Conventions you're talking about. And so, but which applies specifically to wartime. But yeah, I mean, there's a list of things.
Well, they're essentially going into a civil war right now.
Let's see, Geneva Conventions, 4 treaties and 3 additional protocols that establish the standards for international law and humanitarian treatment in war. So that's just that, which is what I thought. But yeah, I think there's some minimum requirements. Let's see here.
So while he's looking that up, so basically what we're looking up here, ladies and gentlemen,
is... Okay, how does a country... This is from the UN webpage. To become a member is open to all peace-loving states that accept the obligations contained in the United Nations Charter and, in the judgment of the organization, are able to carry out these obligations.
Which are?
Peace... Wait a minute. I want to go back. Is open to all peace-loving states. I don't know that all the members of the UN are peace-loving states, first of all, including us. We're in war more often than anybody. Let's see here. The state submits an application to the Secretary General. The Security Council considers the application. So the permanent members are China, France, Russia, United Kingdom, Great Britain, Northern Ireland, and the United States of America. Northern Ireland, I think, is the rotating member. There's one rotating member from all the other nations in the world.
Okay.
And if the council recommends admission, then the recommendation is presented to the General Assembly, and 2/3 majority vote is necessary. So there you go.
Okay, but it doesn't give any specifics on, treatment of, citizens and things like that. Like I swore.
There might be, but that was the synopsis on the UN website.
Okay. So as far as I'm aware, there was, I can't recall the source, but there was a list of specific rules that had to be followed in order to be a member of the UN, the United Nations, and how you treated your people. Now, what in the hell are you doing?
Sorry, I spilled a little bit of beer on my keyboard and I'm trying to blow it off here.
Oh, okay, ladies
Sorry
and gentlemen.
about
So yeah, you hear the blowhorn. That's what that is.
That was that canned air. I apologize. That's the most redneck thing ever. I spilled beer on my keyboard.
It happens. It happens. So I do think, I really will have to get some more details on that, but I do believe that is an actual thing. And I do feel that the way that China is treating Hong Kong is unacceptable. You're basically dealing with a situation that, is for cause of a civil war.
Not only do they have cops out there shooting people in the eyes, taking their eyes out with rubber bullets, they have stationed a shit ton of military in the area. And there have been many, many documented incidents. I've seen them with my own eyes, videos and pictures both, of triad gang members just beating the fucking shit out of some of these protesters while the police just stand by and watch. So they're bringing criminal gangs in because the Communist Party has basically said, hey, we'll let you guys have a free hand if you'll just help us suppress these riots.
That's ridiculous. Like I'm sorry, right? But even if the criminals are against you and the government are against you, well, fuck, there's really not much you can do there, is there?
That's what I'm saying. And for the triads to believe that the Communist Party is going to let them operate, really? I mean, they might be now, but again, they're playing the long game. I guarantee you, to you triads who are listening, of course there aren't any, but you fucking assholes, you guys are going to get eliminated in, 50 or 100 years or something when they've got total control over the country or more total control. They're going to get rid of you. They know who you are. They know where you're at. They're a surveillance state. They're going to take you assholes out.
Yeah, exactly. You can't buy a damn thing in China without that thing. They want you to buy technology because that means they can monitor everything that you're doing.
Absolutely.
Come on. You're talking about a country that has almost zero access to actual internet. Like the internet that you have access to in China is internal.
The Great Firewall of China, yes, and Russia's moving the same direction, by the way. They're making a whole new internal internet, and they're talking about cutting themselves off completely for the same reasons.
That's ridiculous. Right. Information should not be controlled, people. It's modern book burning is what that is. That is modern book burning.
Well, if let's see what happens in a few years when Putin's up for election again. Because I don't think he's eligible to run again, but he's going to find a way to run again, or he's going to find a way to. How long
has he been president?
Too many times. I saw a thing about it on Vice News, but honestly, it was a while back. But he's already served his terms, but he's pulled some shenanigans to serve like one more and part of another one. I guarantee you, he's either going to find a way to serve again, or he's going to change the Constitution so that he can just do whatever the hell he wants, or he's going to pick somebody who's going to be his puppet. Putin's going to run Russia until the day he dies or until somebody takes him out. He is absolutely the most powerful man in the country. And the same with Xi Jinping. He made the Xi Jinping. That's his name. Anyway, he had their constitution amended, and they're practically worshiping him as a communist god now. They put him on the same level as Mao, for Christ's sake.
That's ridiculous. The thing is, why would you applaud a person that does that?
I don't understand that alien thinking to worship a man. Because I know that the left accuses us of that, but again, I've said numerous times on this podcast, Trump is a fucking idiot half the time. I don't like 90% of what comes out of his mouth. All I know is the economy is doing wonderful for everybody, and we're finally standing up to people. We've got our allies working with us better. He's talking about border security and getting shit done there.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, I'm a white male, but again, even the black coworkers I have seem to be doing just fine.
Well, and that's the thing is you can't argue with the numbers. I mean, I don't know how many times I have to repeat this, but I mean, unemployment is, you know, in the dirt, you know,
And
like across the
economies
board.
win elections. They've said that for decades and decades and decades, that economies win elections. You know, when the economy's good, the incumbent wins.
Now, I do want to voice an opinion that was brought to my attention on Twitter when I made that comment, because I don't want this to be an echo chamber.
No, definitely not.
So something that was kind of brought to my attention when I made that comment is like the economy, you know, like there's jobs for basically everybody, like the unemployment rate's in the dirt. So the guy agreed with me on that. He's like, yeah, but you know, do they give you a livable wage? And so first, let me express my opinion on this.
Oh,
I've
got a good argument there.
I am completely and fully against a minimum wage. I believe that you should be paid what you're worth, and you shouldn't be being paid $15 an hour to flip a damn burger. Okay, you shouldn't. All right, if you want, like, life choices, people, life choices. Okay, there's FAFSA. Okay, like there's a lot of ways that you can go to college. You can get a higher education. You can learn some shit. You know, YouTube, which is a free resource. You go to a public library and watch some videos and learn something. You know, get good at something.
There's hundreds of free computer programming classes on the internet. Hundreds.
Exactly. I'm not saying it's going to be easy. I'm not saying that you're going to be living in a lap of luxury while you're learning. I mean, look at it this way. The best example I can give is a movie which was based on a true story, which is In Pursuit of Happiness. Okay,
Oh
with
yeah,
Will Smith.
that was a great movie.
Okay, that man went through hell. He went through a divorce. He fought for his kid. He slept in bathrooms and shit while he was working a job that didn't pay him anything to get a position in the company, because he knew at the end of the day that position in that company would solve his problems. So he suffered what he had to suffer, kept pushing forward, did what he had to do, and he got where he wanted to be.
One of the most successful black men in America.
Exactly. And if you sit there and say, well, I can't do that, of course you can do that. Look at his circumstances. Like, those were probably like the worst possible circumstances you could possibly look at, like you could possibly have. Bar none. And he made it through. There's not a damn thing apart from a terminal illness that you could tell me that is a reason why you can't do something similar.
I don't know if I'd go quite that far, but certainly the desire to have some personal responsibility in this country and work hard for what you want has definitely gone by the wayside. And it's something I talk about a lot with my students. It's that personal responsibility. You have to be willing to stand up and take responsibility for what you have done in your life that has caused you to be where you're at.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
And no, I'm not talking about their lives, how they've grown up in shitty homes and their parents are fucking neglectful and all that. Of course, that's not their fault. But, you know, their decision to punch Johnny in the face because he said your mama was fat, that's a decision that you could have not made.
Exactly.
You know?
Even if she is, it doesn't matter.
Right? So I have these talks with them about what does and doesn't matter in life and that kind of stuff. Anyway.
Like, I mean, most of our mothers have gained weight over time. You know,
it's
kind
a
of
natural occurrence of childbirth for most women.
Yeah, it's something that kind of happens. You know, if you know Johnny says your mom's fat and you get pissed off, just blame yourself because you're probably the reason.
My wife's kind of a big girl, but I'm going to tell you, big girls they're the best in a sack.
Do you understand what TMI is, right?
God, look, I'm just saying. Big girls are enthusiastic in ways skinny girls aren't. I don't know.
We'll just have to agree to disagree on that point now, won't
we? So, anyway, yeah, Hong Kong, I don't know, man. I don't know what the answer is there.
Yeah, I don't know what the answer in Hong Kong is either.
I do know that Hong Kong and Venezuela are perfect case examples why I will never give up my guns.
Oh no, exactly. Like that's just like in Venezuela. My God, like Mexico's like going right. Oh, so here's another good thing in recent news that you might not know, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, the 100 bodies in a well.
No, actually, that's another good one, but this is more financially based, and this is something that affects all foreigners living in Mexico, because it is only Mexico that is doing this. So, Mexico has implemented I suppose you could say, like a law where anyone living in Mexico, foreign or domestic, somebody from Mexico, citizen, cannot keep any finances outside of a Mexican bank account. Meaning, so for example, their first implementation of this is PayPal. PayPal allows you to keep money in PayPal to use as you wish, where you wish online, wherever PayPal is accepted. Correct? So what Mexico has done is they have forced the hand of PayPal to implemented forced automatic transfers to a bank account. If you do not have a Mexican bank account, you cannot have a Mexican PayPal account. So basically, any monies that go into your PayPal account at 12 o'clock the next day, you're given the day to transfer it yourself. You can transfer it yourself manually. But if you don't, 12 a.m. the next day, your money automatically transfers to a Mexican bank account. And if it's not a Mexican bank account, it just sits there. And it is frozen, by the way. So you can't use it. In that time period, you can't use the money in your PayPal account to purchase anything.
Wow.
Now, I don't know about you guys, but I don't like anybody telling me what I can or can't do with the money that I'm earning. Telling me where I can or can't keep it. So this to me is a big red flag about the direction that Mexico is going with its citizens. Okay, there's already no guns here, right? So you can't legally own a gun. So they don't have to take guns away. But the next thing is controlling the finances. So now, if I'm not mistaken, I forgot who I talked to about this. But I believe it was Venezuela has this implemented, and a few other, Cuba has this implemented. And basically what happens is it doesn't matter if you have $15 million in your bank account, you're only allowed to use $1,000 a month. Is, I'm sure, going to be the next step. I forgot what the actual name of what it's called is, but that is the general idea to control your finances. You can have as much money as you want, but you're only allowed to use $1,000 a month, or whatever amount that the government decides. And that's what this is going towards. If you take away external sources to hold your money and spend as you see fit, you have to filter it through a local bank account. Meaning that local bank account has to do what the government says. Meaning if they say, hey, you've got X amount there, but you can only use this much of what's in there. You can't take out any more. It's essentially the same thing. It's putting everybody on the same playing field, and it's not cool.
Another reason for you to get the fuck out of Mexico.
Would you or would you not be alarmed if that happened in the United States?
I would be extremely alarmed. Dude, you need to get the fuck out. Fuck Mexico, dude. Take your ass to Canada or something if you can't get your wife into the U.S. in a timely fashion. Canada will fucking take you. At least you'll be able to get across the border to visit once in a while, you know?
Yeah, this is true. Canada's not that big. I mean, it's big, but it's like most of it's not even populated.
Now, look, you can live on the East Coast. You'll be near home.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. No, it is. I talked to my wife about it, and it's something that is alarming me greatly, because the thing is so I'm beginning to move all of my finances stateside. So, unfortunately, I can't have a traditional bank account, but there are a couple of banks that do 100% online banking, which means that does not require me to go to the States to sign any paperwork. It's all digital signatures. And I'm going to be being sent a U.S. chip from my mother. She's going to be sending me a U.S. Phone chip, which will allow me to verify that, I'm a U.S. citizen and, I'm in the U.S., quote unquote. And I'm going to be setting up a U.S. PayPal account. My money will be transferred into a U.S. PayPal account, which also charges less, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. And that will be moving into a U.S. bank account. So it's tiptoeing around the issue, but it's, precautions that need to be made, because the moment that shit goes down and I got money in the bank account and I can't touch it, ladies and gentlemen, that means you can't get out. You are stuck. Because money moves mountains. Am I right or am I wrong?
I think you're probably right.
So I'm trying to avoid that from happening before it gets to a point where I can't get any of the things that I need to come in here. Right. So, but I can see the direction that it's going. You guys can call me paranoid. You can say I'm a conspiracy theorist, but I see the direction that it's going. And ladies and gentlemen, when you start seeing things like this, you have to understand where the red flags lie. So right now in the United States, it's a giant screaming match between sides right now. But the inevitability that if the left wins of similar things happening in the United States are on a grand scale. You have to understand how bad things are. Now, Mexico has the excuse on an international platform to sit there and say it's because of the cartels and we're trying to fight money laundering. But anybody with half of a brain knows that's not true, because the people that are money laundering aren't using fucking PayPal. So
yeah, that's true.
And this was implemented 2 days ago. September 25th is when it was implemented.
If the government at some point told the U.S. how much they could spend per month, there would be an immediate run on the banks and mass panic in every single city. I can't even imagine.
Mm-hmm. It'd be the Great Depression all over again. People would be pulling out their money left and right. You see banking institutions just going under. People would be going for cold hard cash. They literally have mattresses full of fucking money. And the thing is, and that's the worst thing that you can do is, like, if your government starts to try to control your finances or where you can keep your finances, money that you have earned, by telling a corporation that you can no longer allow these people, our people, to hold their finances with your institution, guys, there's something going on. The precedent that it sets is terrifying. And I'm glad that James agrees with me, because I thought I was going crazy there for a second.
No, the government should never be allowed to tell you what you can do with your money, any more than the government should be allowed to tell you where or when you can travel or anything else. And again, that's part of why I got a problem with the TSA, but whatever.
No, I hear you. So, how about this 100 people in a well thing?
Oh, yeah. So for those of you who didn't hear the other day, they found 100 bodies buried in 44 bags in a Mexican well. I really hope nobody was drinking from that motherfucker.
They probably were.
Oh, my God.
Knowing how Mexico operates, yeah, they probably were.
I mean, folks, if that doesn't give you a scope of the problem in Mexico, I mean, imagine the headlines if they found 100 bodies somewhere here in the U.S. People would be screaming bloody murder. What the fuck? Who's the serial killer? This is damn near a weekly occurrence in Mexico.
Yeah, and nobody says shit down here, guys. I live down here.
Not anymore.
They haven't for a long time.
Yeah, because it's become the norm.
Like people dying down here. It's like, somebody else is dead. Somebody else is dead. Somebody else got kidnapped. Somebody else got chopped up. No, it's such like a daily thing.
I'm honestly surprised Mexico has a net positive birth rate.
Yeah, well,
as many people as get murdered down there, I'm shocked that you aren't declining massively in population. I'm serious. It's crazy. You're right.
So, ladies and gentlemen, the reason that this is relevant is you have to understand who your neighbors are. I mean, think about it this way. Think about what's his name? John Wayne Gacy. Is it John? No.
John Wayne Gacy.
Yeah, John Wayne Gacy. John Wayne Gacy was a pillar of the community. He went to church. People loved him. He dressed up as a clown for birthday parties, things like that. And underneath his house, what did they find? Something around like 35 bodies under his house or more?
I don't know. But yeah, crazy dude.
You know, and the thing was, is nobody would have ever suspected him for murder. This is a guy that you would leave your kids with. This is the type of guy that you'd be like, I trust this guy. I'm going to leave my kids with him. Okay? Know who your neighbors are. Grant you, this is a larger scale, but understand what's happening down here. Mexico is not a wonderful place. You need to stop waving their fucking flag in my country. I don't wave mine and yours. Don't wave yours and mine. Because I'll start burning Mexican flags.
I do get tired of seeing a Mexican flag hanging around.
Okay? Now, that's a beautiful thing about the United States. You're allowed to do that. It's disrespectful as fucking hell, but you're allowed to do it. Okay? Down here, technically speaking, I guess I'd be allowed to do it, but...
You get your ass beat or something, yeah.
I'd get my ass beat or I'd get shot in the head. So, you have to understand who your neighbors are, and your neighbors are not nice people. Are there good people down here? Of course there are good people down here. It's a country. They're not all evil sons of bitches.
Okay, and here's the difference. Some of my neighbors are not nice people. Again, I think I've said it before. I live in a literal hood.
Yep, you mentioned this.
I have neighbors not too far away, 7-8 blocks. Yep. Drug dealers, the state police are in there all the time. Anyway, and there's been drive-bys and murders in my neighborhood, and you know what? I'll be happy to provide links to the local newspaper. Anyway, the difference is I don't give a shit about pissing off my neighbors because I have the means to defend myself.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the same in Mexico.
It isn't. You do not have a way to defend yourself. Now, I mean, this is one of the reasons why, like, I keep something stupid and decorative like this next to me on my desk. Mm-hmm. A very quick way, flip out the blade, sharp edges, which is why it's worn down. I've been sharpening it. Very sharp point. What does this do? Anybody comes into my home and I'm sitting in here, I have something right next to me that I can use, that I can flip out in a second and use in defense. Now, is this going to help me against a gun? Nope. And unfortunately, criminals in Mexico are exactly the reason why we say taking guns away from law-abiding citizens will never work. Criminals are criminals. They operate outside of the law. A criminal will find a way to have a gun to have the advantage, knowing that the law-abiding citizens do not have them.
So in other words, you're going to stand up with that knife, get shot in the face, and that's going to be that.
Pretty much.
I see, and that's the difference. You know, I've got a 9mm in this desk. I've got a 45 out there on the counter. I've got a rifle and a shotgun back in the bedroom. I don't have to worry. People ask me what I'm scared of. I'm not scared of a goddamn thing. Please, come in my house.
That was sarcasm, ladies and gentlemen. I wouldn't suggest it.
Yeah, no, don't come in my house, please.
Yeah, unless you're invited.
Unless you're invited.
If he invites you in for a cup of coffee or a beer, then go for it. But don't just say, "Hey, what's up?" No, because you wouldn't even get "Hey, what's up" out. So, yeah, it's just, guys. We need to realize who our neighbors are, and unfortunately, Mexico is not run by the government, but rather run by the cartels, and as such, they're the ones that implement everything that happens down here. If anything happens down here, it's because they said make it happen. So
here's what I'm really afraid of, honestly, is that at some point Mexico becomes a totally failed state. That narco-terrorists actually start taking over major cities, for example. At some point, the U.S. is going to have to get involved in that. There's no fucking way the U.S. is going to let a narco state the size of Mexico exist right there on the border. It's bad as it is. I can't even imagine if, people like Guzman were running the government, for example.
Well, the thing was, the way that this stuff worked is, so when you had the old bosses, so I've learned a lot about narco history down here.
Oh, please.
So when you had the old bosses, Caro Quintero, Chapo Guzman, they made pacts over not fighting over certain territories and the way that they would operate and certain things that they would do. So, for example,
they were more business-like, yeah.
Exactly. So it's like we all want to make money. We all have family. You know, we don't want to see everybody dead. We just want to be prosperous. So let's do this the right way. You don't step on my toes. I won't step on your toes. And, you know, the people in the middle are completely safe, right? If they don't get involved, they don't get touched. You know, there was a rule. There was no women and children involved. There was a lot less kidnappings. If a kidnapping happened, it was because it was actually somebody that was involved in, you know, the business, didn't pay somebody, and when ransoms were paid, people were let go. But ever since the government has pushed the old bosses out, and El Chapo Guzman is in U.S. custody, Caro Quintero is nowhere to be found. I mean, he's a little crazy son of a bitch anyway. So like, he's old. Who's running the show now?
All right, real quick. I want to interrupt. We are not saying it's okay or that Guzman is a good guy or anything like that. We're saying it created a power vacuum, as it always does when you chop off the head of a snake in any organization. It creates a power vacuum. And in this case, it wasn't one strong person who rose to the top of these organizations. These organizations all splintered.
Yes. So you had the organization known as Los Zetas, which were originally only sicarios. Sicarios means hitmen for the cartel. They basically got hired by different cartels to take out different people, and they worked, you know, throughout all the cartels. These were Los Zetas, for those of you that don't know, was a military unit trained by U.S. officials in Mexico to combat the narcos. And the narcos offered them a lot more money, so you've basically got U.S. military training, you know, with a bunch of psychos.
That's what happened.
And these guys are rough. Like, you don't know. Like, Los Zetas are like the worst possible organization that you could ever think of topping over, worse than MS-13. Now, MS-13 are some crazy motherfuckers, and they've done some scary shit, but they're not as organized or as lethal as Los Zetas. And now, Los Zetas, what they're trying to do is they're trying to move in on everybody's drug manufacturing and sell other people's shit under their name. And this is where all this internal war and conflict is happening in Mexico as far as the cartel side of things are concerned. And you're talking about people that they don't give a shit who gets stuck in the crossfire. You get people
not anymore. They don't. Nope. Gunning down innocent kids and women and everything. They just don't care.
Exactly. They'll take an entire bus, a bus of people going to work and going to school. Lock the people in the bus. You're talking buses down here get overpacked. So you're talking about buses that have, you know, 60, 70 people inside of it. They will stand on the outside of the bus. Anybody tries to get out through the window, they get shot, and they burn the bus in the middle of the road. Yep. They call it narco bloqueo. It's a narco roadblock with burning bodies.
Here's the really sickening part. I know you can attest to this. This narco trafficker culture, they've almost become folk heroes. There's daytime soap operas about them now in Mexico. There's movies being made about them, books. There's songs in the streets, in some cases, people singing about them. It's crazy. And now they have their own patron saint, for Christ's sake. It's gone way, way overboard.
Well, and the thing is what happens is they actually pay for that stuff. So
But my point being, and here was the point I was going to make real quick, it's not any different than the gangster culture here in the U.S., the gangster rap culture and acting tough and you know, bragging about your crimes on your records and all this other shit. It's no different, and it's sickening.
It is. And the thing is like what happens, guys, is what these guys do is they end up getting so much money that they actually pay artists, TV producers, things like that, to paint them in a different light, to paint them in a positive light, to paint them as... So
they can be seen as Robin Hood or something.
Exactly. To paint them as the defenders of the locals, right? Like they call them Los Ángeles del Pueblo, the angels of the people. And that's what they're trying to paint themselves as. And this is very popular in the north of Mexico. So get that, guys. This is popular in the north of Mexico, which is closer to you.
Yes, closer to the southern U.S.
Exactly. Which means, like, the people that support the narcos live right next door to you.
Right. And so the idea of narco traffickers taking over Mexico in whole or in large part, and are almost there. I get that it's kind of far-fetched, but when you are doing things for the people, and the traffickers, some of them do this, they'll set up charities for the people, and they'll help out the locals and give them money and do things like this to gain their support, so that they're not informing on them and they're actively resisting government efforts to root them out.
Well, that's how elections work down here, actually.
Exactly.
So, political elections down here, what'll happen is there's no laws against this down here. I do believe there is laws against this in the States. I would hope so. What a candidate will do is they will take some of the funding from the campaign, go to the poorest areas, which are generally the largest areas in Mexico, which is kind of like a Brazilian favela, right? So your houses on top of houses. They'll go door to door and say, we will buy you an entire week's worth of food if you vote for us.
Yeah, no, you'd go to prison here in the U.S. for that.
And these people, because they don't have money, because they're way below any poverty line you can think of, jump on it and say, you have my vote, feed my kids.
Yep.
And that's how you get idiots like the idiot that's the president down here now, which is a complete and utter socialist.
Yep, that's exactly what happens. And that is actually not very different from what the U.S. does here. The Democrats, I should say, vote for us, and we will give you increased whatever you want, increased benefits, we'll give you your free phone, all these other social programs that are out there. I was reading a great article about that, about the Obama phones. And real quick, let's give the other side of the story.
Mm-hmm.
The Obama's phones started as a Lifeline program under, I think it was Reagan, so a very, very long time ago, and it was designed to give lower income Americans a landline phone so that they could dial 911.
Yep.
That was the intent of the program. It's since morphed into, nope, we have to have a cell phone for this and that and the other. And I read this article about how Sprint was collecting millions a year, it seemed like. I read. It was a lot of money, though, from the federal government for these Obama phones for people that weren't even using the goddamn things anymore. So there you go. No oversight to a social program. Gee, who would have imagined that? Again,
Exactly.
I don't trust the federal government to wipe its own ass, let alone handle our tax dollars.
Exactly. I mean, the thing is, and that's what this is all about, right? This is like, what we're talking about is less government control. The government does, the minimum that it needs to do to run the country, and leaves us the fuck alone to do what we have to do as American citizens. And, make our living and actually have our pursuit to happiness, right? And whatever that might be.
A far better option would have been pressuring local phone companies to do that sort of thing. And, in this day and age, the idea that I have to have a cell phone for an emergency is absolute fucking bullshit, because everybody's got a cell phone. And we lived, or at least I did, you're not as old as I am. I lived through the 70s and early 80s where violent crime was actually much, much higher than it is now in the U.S.
It was a lot more difficult to catch people.
Right. So statistically, it was more dangerous then. And, we all lived through it. You don't need a cell phone. You don't need to be a helicopter parent to your kids. Give them a little bit of freedom.
I didn't have a cell phone until I was, I think I was like 17.
Shit. I didn't have one. Let's see. I was out of the Army when I got my first cell phone. So I would have been 24, 25 years old. And granted, I have one now and I use it. But to me, it's a tool. It's not I have to have it kind of thing. No.
I actually use my phone more for creative purposes than I do for actually calling people. Like, I don't have people to call.
Honestly, I probably spend a total of maybe 45 minutes a week on Twitter on my cell phone. And other than that, other than making the occasional phone call, I use it for looking at the news in the morning when I'm drinking my coffee before I go to work.
Yeah. No, I mean, so me, like, I'm because, I am a creative. I do leverage the technology that I have in my hand So, for example, color schemes, like there's applications that can actually tell me exactly what color something is if I want to use it in a design.
Oh, that's cool.
You know, I use it to take pictures that I use in editing. So instead of like using somebody else's work, I can, you know, take what would appear to be, you know, a professional level photo, you know,
Right.
which is perfect for, you know, design purposes on the internet, without having to spend money to download some type of stock photo taken by somebody else that's been used in a million different places.
Well, that's cool.
So I do leverage the technology in creation. I use it to keep communicating with my wife when my wife isn't home. We're constant communication. We actually have an app on each of our phones that tracks where we are.
Now,
when we go
living in a very dangerous environment like Mexico, I think that is a fantastic idea. Right? Because you just never know what the fuck's going to happen.
Exactly. So the thing is, if I can see, look, so if I can open up my phone, you know, like, so let's say there's like sometimes when she goes to the casino with her sister, it gets really loud and she doesn't answer the phone.
Right.
So after about 3 calls and she doesn't answer the phone, I open up the app and check, is she still located in the casino or is she someplace else and do I need to worry?
Right.
You know?
Yeah. No. And again, living someplace like Mexico and your wife being out in public where she's not allowed to carry pepper spray or a weapon to defend herself or anything like that, that is a very, very smart precaution to take. And therefore, yeah, in that situation, I think smartphones are a great thing. But overall, I honestly believe smartphones and specifically smartphones, not necessarily cell phones, but specifically smartphones, have been a terrible, terrible bane on our society.
No, I agree.
There is a whole new form of autism being diagnosed now. These are kids that are growing up and becoming basically autistic and never learning how to interact with people because their parents are on their damn phones too much. Now, that doesn't shock me. I can't even tell you how many times I've seen parents walking through the store on their phone, doing their grocery shopping absentmindedly while they're yelling at the kids to leave them alone.
Yeah, no, that's ridiculous. Like, so, like, I'm on the computer a lot because of work, and what I do to earn extra money, podcasts, things like that. But I do spend time with my son, off electronics. We do play together, things like that. It's, you know, just, you know, something that we make sure that we do. He does have his own computer. We use it as an entertainment system. Basically, it's for movies, television, things like that. But we do, you know, control the content. We do control the amount of time, things like that. You know,
wait. Are you saying that you're a parent and you're involved in your child's life?
I am not only involved in his life, but completely aware of everything that's going on in his development.
You're doing it wrong. You're supposed to ignore him and be on your phone all the time talking about your Instagram likes and how many followers you have.
I would like to do that if they didn't fucking ban me.
Yeah, right? No shit. No, honestly, I don't give a shit about social media, dude. I enjoy Twitter just because it's short and pithy and there's not these big, long, drawn-out, dramatic conversations 90% of the time.
Yeah, I barely use, like, so for those of you that don't know, I've been given access back to Facebook. Instagram's a permaban. Doesn't seem like that's coming back anytime
And again,
soon.
we were permabanned for saying we interviewed Laura Loomer, not even for posting the interview, just for saying we interviewed her.
Yep.
That's it. That's all we did. We said we interviewed her and they permabanned us. How is that not censorship? That is fucking nuts, yo.
Yeah, it is absolutely fucking ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. So at least with the Facebook, we do have a Facebook page up for the Roaming Self. So that's there. You can check us out over there. We are currently right now streaming live to...
Sounds like your dog park is bleeding over again.
Yeah, probably. So we are currently... Oh, I gotta mute that. We are currently live on Mixer. So mixer.com/roaming self. Twitch.tv/roaming self. YouTube.com/the roaming self. And dlive.tv /roaming self. And Periscope patreon.com/roaming self.
Where we hope to be with everybody each week, yes.
Exactly. That is where we are. We are trying to expand to be on as many platforms as possible. So that way we can reach as many people as possible, and you can enjoy our live content on the platform of your choice. So you don't have to be making accounts places where you don't want to.
Let's get into the last part of our show where we get a little more lighthearted.
All right.
What the fuck is with minimum wage workers?
Expand.
Okay. I worked McDonald's all through high school my senior year. Mm-hmm. I worked through Burger King when I was in 9th grade at McDonald's in Germany. Mm-hmm. Or Burger King in Germany, I just said. Anyway, I worked, those two, and I think a couple other minimum wage jobs as a young man before I joined the Army. Anyway, I was not always the best employee when I was 14 in Germany. I had to grow up a little bit, but, I don't remember actively fucking up customer orders. I really don't. So my local Domino's pizza, Domino's has gotten really good over the years. They really have. I order them a lot more than I do Pizza Hut now. And they have bacon jalapeno cheese bread, which is hell in the digestive system, but tastes amazing. And I get that every time we order. And the first time we ordered tonight, it had pineapple in it. Now, I'm not going to have the whole pineapple on pizza argument with you guys, but finding pineapple in my bacon jalapeno cheese bread was not fun. So I asked my wife to please call the pizza place back and ask them to send it back out again. The second order also had pineapple in it. The third order turned out to be just fine, but how do you fuck up a 3-ingredient recipe? It's literally bacon, jalapeno, and cheese bread. How do you fuck that up? 3 ingredients, people. Okay, that is first world problems.
One of my first jobs was actually working at a Subway. So it was the first place I ever worked. Was a Subway, and I remember the times where I had to run the line by myself with 5 to 8 customers waiting.
Oh, yeah.
And mind you, for those of you that have been living under a rock and never been to a Subway, a Subway has a line which generally has between at least 2 to 4 people working on it, and each person handles a different ingredient or set of ingredients that goes on a sandwich. And this way it speeds up the ordering process because you're talking directly to the customer, what they want on it. It goes down the line. There were several times at this Subway in particular where I was the only one on the line, apart from the person that was on the cash register, which refused to join the line with me. So I had to go down the line and handling at least 2 people at the same time, 2 different orders, setting up a sandwich for 2 different people at the same time to get through. I think I maxed out at 8 people and not fucking up once. Because let's face it, customers like to complain. And they have the right to do so. If they're going to be spending their money on a particular product, nobody wants to have to wait a second time or third to get exactly what they're spending their money on. Now you might sit there and say, well, James, it was just fucking pineapple. Eat the shit. That's not the point. He spent his money on something specific. He wanted just that. And he shouldn't have to suffer through something else.
Oh, I don't know if I'd call it suffering. Again, it's first world problems. And I was laughing about it with the manager on the phone when I called to talk to him the second time. But it's like, how do you fuck? And I asked him that. I said, how do you fuck up a 3-ingredient thing? Are your employees like brand new tonight? And he said, no. And I said, well, I don't know what to tell you then. And he said, I don't know what to tell you either, but it'll be right this time. And it was. So I'll give him credit for that. But still. So anyway. And
That's great.
As always, it tasted delicious. Again, my local Domino's has been amazing over the last 10 years. So I don't know what happened tonight, but I'll forgive him this one for faux pas.
Well, mistakes happen,
right?
Even if it was like, a double in one night. Yeah.
So I didn't get my dinner till late, but again, first world problems.
Yeah, well, I mean, now you can tell them like that's their fuck ups for the next 6 months.
There you go.
You allow 2 fuck ups per every 6 months, and they did both in one night. Yep. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to conclude this Friday, September 27, 2019 episode of The Roaming Self. I'd like to thank you personally for having all of you present, if you were present for the live show, and thank all of you that are going to be listening on the pre-recorded podcast. Hopefully soon.
And we'll get the power outage clipped out for the podcast part.
Yeah, we'll get that clipped out. That won't be there. It'll be one solid episode. Don't worry.
That was bizarre.
Yeah, it was. It just kind of it screwed up the flow. We had a good flow going, but I think we got it back.
Yeah,
I think we got it back. So, James, final thoughts.
You know what? Don't hang out in the left lane on the interstate, you assholes. Seriously, the left lane is for passing only. Get the fuck out of my way. I don't care if I'm doing 90. Let me get the speeding ticket. Don't worry about me. Get the fuck out of my way if I'm in the left lane. Thank you.
And that's it for tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Have a good night.
Bye.